Greetings friends, happy autumn and welcome to our homestead. Here on our homestead, we grow and raise a number of things throughout the year, including chickens, ducks, and even goats. We recently added goats this year, but we're also involved heavily in what we grow in our garden areas. Let's go check out what we're growing this fall. During our 6 years here, we've been trying to grow and expand our growing areas each year. And this year we added this raised bed here, which earlier in the spring had daffodils and tulips, and then in the larger portion it had things like strawberries growing in them,
and calendula.
And I think the strawberries are still producing a little bit right now.
Yep.
We even had sunflowers that look really neat towering over everything, and we also have Thai basil that is still growing right now. And Thai basil has done excellent for us. We have it growing here as well as some in the greenhouse. And speaking of the greenhouse, it's currently in transition phase for the cooler season. So it's a little messy in there, but it's in transition right now. We plan to grow more in there during the fall as well as the winter once we seal it all up and do what needs to be done to it. But also in there, we have mint growing in there and lemon balm, both of which we are able to grow and harvest throughout the year. And lemon balm is a really good one to grow because it's really good for anxiety and it's beneficial for the thyroid and things like that. It's really good to keep around because you can just keep harvesting from it. It just keeps growing, both the lemon balm and the mint. But as we walk past these areas, we're heading out to the main garden.
Oh, I think I found one of our first persimmons that's ready. So house salt is. Normally you don't pick them off the tree or you're gonna get really bitterness, but let's try it. Super sweet. They'll be really good after the first frost.
One of the big projects that I had early this year was just really culling out a number of trees that we had just on the other side of these persimmon trees here. And there's been a number of benefits to that project, getting that project done. And one of which is the fruit trees that we have been having in these areas are actually doing better now that we culled out the overgrown trees that were surrounding them. There was about 100 trees that was in that area just beyond there. And you can see here how these trees how they curved over and were working towards getting the light because there were so many trees just overpowering them that they were doing whatever they had to do to reach and get the light. But now that they don't have that, they're actually producing more, and some of the trees are starting to stand upright a little bit more. So it's pretty neat to see.
And they're producing bigger fruit. I mean, look at that. For an American persimmon, that's a huge one.
That's fantastic. And in addition to that, the areas over there that are more open now, we're able to more easily run our chickens through there, and also we're able to plant different things now. We've also added some other fruit trees from Stark Brothers, some apple trees, some pear trees, cherry trees, as well as we've added some things like raspberries in there. We're looking to continue to produce more and more. And even there's an apple tree that has been here 6 years now, just right over here. Let's check it out before we head to the garden. In the 6 years that we've been here, this apple tree hasn't produced much of anything. And I don't know when exactly this was planted. Do you have any idea when this tree was planted?
I want to say probably about 8 years ago. Okay. And you know, when they're planted, they're a few years old already. So it should have been bearing more fruit than it has. And like the ones in the past that we've seen have been like this big around, and now these are much, much bigger.
And one of the big reasons I don't think it was producing anything was because of all the other trees that were back here in this area, just taking away light and maybe some nutrients as well. So it's really, really neat to see the fruits of our labor, to be able to enjoy it. So this one's ready.
Yeah.
Yummy. And in the same area, just right inside of our garden, we have our garden, our main garden areas fenced in. We are growing okra right here, and we have added a number of rows this year of okra that we've done, and it has done fantastic, especially this green kind here. I can't remember what variety it is, but I'll make sure we include it in the show notes below, as well as some of the other varieties that we're going to be mentioning in this video. We'll provide them in the show notes below. So this one is really tall. And we had some high winds from tropical storm last week, but they were standing really tall. And look at these stalks right here. They're like trees. That's crazy.
And another thing that I like about this variety of okra is that the pods stay tender even up to like 6 inches long, which is kind of unheard of for okra, but I really like that. And even when it got a little tough, I took it and put them in the dehydrator with some spices on it, and they turned out really good that way too.
So this is a variety that will definitely keep growing. The major purpose of our garden is for market. Most of the items that we grow are your higher profitability items and your faster growing crops. And a lot of those crops consist of things like radishes and greens like lettuces, arugula, and things like that. And we continue to grow those for most of the year. Right here we have some radishes that we're growing, and they're not quite ready yet, but they're getting close. And Lacie has one right there.
They're getting really close.
And the varieties of radishes that we like to grow are the Saxon 2, the Cherry Bell, the Purple Plum, the Early Scarlet Globe, and Josiah, I think is how you pronounce it. Those are some of the ones that I like to grow, and those are ones you can get from Baker Creek. And once again, that information is in the show notes below. So, but we're continuing to grow these, and even right now you can still grow things like spinach, radishes, and lettuce. And we're actually transplanting lettuce on up until the end of October and harvesting them even in December and January before it's time to start once again. So we also have here, we have some beets and some other beds on the back end that we're going to be letting rest. But each of our beds are 50 foot in length in this main section. We also have some basil that's been growing, which is pretty much done, as well as some peppers. This year we've really been expanding how many peppers we can grow.
Oh, yeah.
We're growing more varieties, and we're actually they're producing much more for us as well. So right here is a MURASAKI purple pepper. It's an heirloom variety.
Yep.
It's a Japanese pepper, and we use it for all kind of things.
They're not hot. They're kind of like a bell pepper, except just smaller. So they're really good, you know, anywhere you want a little bit of that bell pepper taste, you can throw these in there.
Yeah, we do Taco Tuesday, and
right.
We've used those a number of times for Taco Tuesdays.
Yes.
As well as we have a number of other peppers that we're growing right down here.
So I did a number of pepper starts this year, and so some of what we do have our normal, you know, just green bell pepper, and then another new one this year is an albino bullnose, which this is another bell pepper, but it is just, you know, kind of a yellowish tint. It's not super green. Now these right here are called lemon drop peppers, and they are hot. And this right here is why they're called lemon drop peppers, because they turn this yellow color whenever they are fully ripe. So we have these, and then over here, I think my favorite for this year that we're growing are these right here. And these are called BIQUINHO peppers. Now they're super mild, don't have a lot of heat at all, but they have a great flavor. So I like taking these, you know, cutting them in half, throw them in a pan with some cherry tomatoes and blister those up, and then you can eat this over rice, pasta, in tacos. You know, they're just really, really good.
So this one just has that sweet, slightly spicy flavor. It's really good. But I need my dose of capsaicin today. So we need a little bit of hot.
I'll let him keep that one. Because look right here.
Woo! God, got me.
He can keep that. I like hot stuff, but not in that high dosage, we'll say.
Woo! All right, right over here, we have lettuce growing. Here is a Salanova lettuce that we have growing. We grow multiple varieties. And some of the other varieties of lettuce that we grow are Muir and oak leaf. And depending on what different times of the year will determine on which variety that we'll use, because some of them do better in the cooler seasons and some of them can handle the warmer temperatures easier. And for the most part, we start most of our greens and a lot of our crops in general indoors. And doing that helps to ensure that we have greater success in our plants getting started and our seeds germinating, because we're able to control the humidity and the temperature. So right now we currently have other lettuces that will be transplanting out here within the next week or two, and we'll continue to do that even up until October.
And you also may be wondering what this black fabric is that we have on the ground. It's called landscape fabric. What it does is it blocks the light but lets in the rain. So we take it, we put holes in it, we transplant our plants directly into the holes, and it helps keep the weed pressure down. So we're not out here just pulling weeds all the time, and we can just come and cut our lettuce and go, and it's not full of a bunch of grass.
Excellent point. In addition to using the landscape fabric for planting our plants in, we also have been this year of adding landscape fabric throughout many of the walkways and around the perimeter of our garden. And this has cut down the workload for us having to weed dramatically. So I highly recommend, if you can, start implementing the use of landscape fabric and things like that to really reduce your workload. And we'll include the information for the landscape fabric in the show notes below as well. And as we're heading over to another section of our garden, I want to point out that we do have a number of beds that we're currently turning over and prepping for some of our transplants, like our lettuces, to go into, and like these beds right here. Just broad forked them, so we're going to be adding fertilizer to them, and then we're going to be getting them planted as soon as possible. And overall, in the major portion of our garden, we have about 27, 28, 50-foot length beds that we grow produce in. And in this other section that we're heading to, these beds are 25 foot in length. And in some of these beds, like right here, we have arugula that is growing, and we just started it maybe about what, two weeks ago?
Maybe so.
So this should be ready to harvest probably in like next week or the week after that, very, very soon. And then right here, we have some radishes. And these will be ready probably by somewhere closer to the end of October. So as your days go, and at the end of the year, as your days are shorter, then the time to maturity is going to be longer than it would be in the spring and summer when the days are really, really longer. But just getting there. They're almost there. We should get a harvest from them. And in addition to those, we also have some spinach growing down there, as well as some turnips and some red Russian kale. But right up here, we have some more stuff growing.
So we have some more peppers up here, and one pepper I really want to share with you is this. They're called Ahi Peppers. There's more to the name, but Ahi is the first part of it. And these things are so tiny, right here. I like to say they're tiny but mighty. So these are pretty hot. And the first time that I saw one ripen up, all I did was this. Just barely break the skin. And you already know that it's gonna be hot. So I will take my little BIQUINHO peppers that aren't really hot, and I'll put them in the pan, and I'll add about 4 or 5 of these, and that spices up the whole pan really nicely.
That's probably so hot that thing's kicking like Van Damme, right? Make some Van Damme sauce.
That's right. Woo!
Woo!
And I didn't even eat the thing.
Woo! In addition to those peppers, we have a pepper that may be even hotter or just as equally hot, and that is the Chinese 5-color pepper. And I really think it's probably the prettiest pepper just because of all the different colors that are there. But it packs a punch, or a Van Dam kick, whatever you want to call it.
But the one thing is that all of these peppers have been super prolific. Like every single pepper that we've grown this year. So, you know, that's, if you like hot peppers, you might keep that in mind.
In addition to the peppers, we also have really increased the amount of eggplant that we were growing this year. It's not my favorite food, but you can do it in a number of dishes. It's a low GI food, which means it's not going to affect your blood sugar. And we've been growing a couple different varieties, like Black Beauty, the Antigua, and Astrakhan, I think is how you pronounce the other one. But they've been doing well.
Tongue.
So yes, we actually have done that one as well.
They are a long eggplant. They're really good. You can just slice them up and throw them in a dish, and I really enjoy those.
And I think that about wraps it up. We do have some cabbages and some younger plants that are growing right now that are just getting started, as well as some bok choy that we're doing as well. But hopefully you enjoy just seeing our garden. Hopefully you're growing something. Please let us know in the comment section below what you're doing for your fall garden. And for those of you who are looking for some type of schedule or planner to help you with when to start your seeds, when to plant them, and things like that, feel free to check out Clyde's Garden Planner.
Yep.
And we'll leave that information in the show notes below as well. But that's a really good starting guide for helping you to know that information.
Sure.
But once you're able to start bringing in things like season extension techniques, like doing things like low tunnels and caterpillar tunnels, it really can extend the growing season and what and how much you're able to produce and when you can. So we also implement that as well. So we have our greenhouse, and we'll do low tunnels here coming up soon as the frost approaches, and we'll also be covering our caterpillar tunnel there. So there's just a number of other things we can do. And we're also, this fall and winter, we also plan to working on our soil fertility and other projects like that, so make sure you stay tuned. You got anything else?
Well, I have my garden over here, even though it doesn't really look like much right now. It kind of got overgrown. So, but I'll show you if you want.
Sure, let's go check it out.
So as you can tell, this is way crazy overgrown. But I do have a little bit of an excuse for that. I didn't plant anything new this year in here. Well, a couple things down at the end, but most everything is just reseeded from last year. And that's one great thing about a garden. So if you plant one year and you let the fruit drop, the next year if you don't get to plant it, it reseeds itself, and then you get volunteers like zinnias that produce almost all year. Even though these have some powdery mildew on them, they're still pretty, they're still producing. And there you go.
And you didn't plant these at all. These came back from last year?
Yeah, these came back from last year. And if you look in here, I actually got tomatoes came back from last year. So there's one right there. And then, you can't see it, but there's yarrow in there that it's hung around. There's more tomatoes through here. See, more tomatoes. Blue cream and berries from Baker Creek. And then tansy has stayed. Well, there's a tomato in there, but this is tansy. I started it from seed last year, and it went all through the winter and still stayed green all winter long. And another one that stayed green all winter long was horehound. It looks pretty terrible right now, but it smells great. I'll cut this way back and it'll still come right back. So there's a lot of things that you can grow that'll just come back the next year or hang around all winter long.
So a number of these herbs are ones that are really good for medicinal purposes. So even though you didn't plant them, we could still use them and utilize them. So it's almost like a mystery garden in here. You don't know what all's in here.
Very true. Even though we need to clean it out here soon, because I would like to get some carrots going and beets and some other things that I just want to grow.
So that's another project to add to the list. Well, that's it for our fall garden. I do believe it's a little late for carrots and beets. I hate to break that to you. But
I'm going
we
to
can
use
plan
some
it for spring.
season extension tools.
There you go.
I'm going to try it, and it'll be my little experiment.
There we go. See what you can get. You can always do radishes though if you want to do radishes. Well, that's it for our fall garden. Hope you enjoyed it. Let us know what you're growing and what you plan to grow this fall if you are growing anything. Well, that's it for now. We'll see you next time.
Bye, guys.